Welcome back to the build. Today we are messing around with these doors we just picked up from the last episode. Going to sand them up a little bit, get them prepped, and pre-stain them. And we'll show you that, why we're doing that. And we're going to maybe test some stain colors, try and figure out the exact sort of look we're trying to do with the doors and the trim. Today's episode is sponsored by Ariat. We appreciate their support. Check out their work clothes and let's get to work. So I'm messing around with, this is one of the linen closet doors. Messing with this one first because it's small and easy to maneuver. Here's the slab. I got the hinges taped off. This is oil rub bronze hinges. I've just been kind of sanding it and cleaning it up a little bit. These have pretty raw, sharp edges. And I don't really like how sharp it is, so I'm just kind of scuffing that off with a sanding sponge. These are 3-panel shaker doors, so these are all, you know, squared off, no rounded bevel, 3 panels. Pretty simple, clear pine doors, and we're going to stain these to try and match those with our island. So I'm taking the doors out of the frame, pre-hanging the frame, at least just the hinge side, to get them all squared up so that when we get everything stained, it's easy to just set the doors and finish hanging the frame around the door. Now I said these are shaker style doors. We are doing sort of a traditional style cabinet and probably some craftsman style casing around the doors. We're not sticking to any specific style for the house. We're doing this eclectic mishmash of cool stuff that we like, because we can. These we like the simplicity of, and then we like how they look with the, sort of the craftsman style casing, where you've got a wider header on top and maybe even a header cap that sort of extends past the width of the casing. So I think when it all comes together, it's going to look really cool. Do what you want. Real quick, I mentioned today's video is sponsored by Ariat. This is the rebar work shirt with the pocket and the pen slot that I always wear, and they finally came out with a DuraStretch M4 rebar cargo shorts, which is the shorts version of their work pants, and they're freaking awesome. These ones are black camo and I love them. So they've got the little pocket for the pen and hook and loop pockets instead of buttons, because buttons are a pain in the butt. All kinds of pockets, but these are awesome and they stretch. All right, we're gonna do some pre-stain testing on this pine and test out some colors. So we're using the Minwax Prestain wood conditioner. This is oil-based. And we're gonna just play with a couple blocks, sand it, hit it with a tack rag, wipe on the Prestain with a foam brush, let it soak in, and we'll come back a little bit and try some stain. All right, I'm gonna try a couple different colors here. Prestain has been drying for about an hour. Wipe this down with a tack rag, as usual. This is just a piece of trim. All this is the same species of pine that matches the doors. And we'll see what we end up with. So this is espresso, Minwax, oil-based stain. Very dark. Let's see what we end up with. We'll do these two with espresso. Putting that on as thick as I can. I'm going to let it sit for 15 minutes and then we'll wipe it off. Do this one too. All right, finished with the espresso. Now for these, we'll do dark walnut. Man, that just sucks it right in. Wonder if this is the non-Prestain side. I didn't actually check. That's the difference between not using Prestain and using Prestain. See how it sits, soaks in more evenly? That's what we want right there. All right, we'll give that 15 minutes, then we'll wipe it off, see what it looks like. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. Obviously, we don't need to wipe this one off. It completely soaked in because we didn't use Prestain on that one, but that's dark walnut. This is also dark walnut, but it has Prestain on it. So we're gonna wipe this. The color is much more even. Kind of like that. That's pretty good. So I'm going to let that dry for probably 6 hours, and then I'll do another coat and see if it gets a little bit darker and richer. But as that sits, it's not quite as dark as I'd like it, and it's a little bit greenish yellowish. This is the espresso color. Again, it's been 15 minutes. Ooh, I really like that. Oh, that might be the one. It's got more of a deeper, more of a golden, kind of dig that one. This is another different piece of trim using the same espresso color. Let's see what this does. See, I'm going to try and kind of leave some stain in any of the recesses. Gives it a little bit of a glaze type finish. Really liking that. Not liking that quite as much. But again, I'm going to wait about 6 hours, let that completely dry, and do a whole nother coat, and we'll see what the difference is. When I do the other coat, maybe I'll just do it on one, and we'll be able to tell. All right, I'm getting ready to work on this 3-foot wide door. This is I call it a 3-0. This is for the downstairs bedroom. So just double check my measurements. This is a 37¼ inch wide with the jamb. Double check the rough opening. That's 38. So we've got 3/4 inch total to play with. So measure bottom, yep, 38, top 38. So accounting for the width of the finished flooring, I've added that to the height of the door, and I've measured up to the center line of where the middle screw in each hinge is, and I made a mark here, here, here. Already put a shim. So we want to double check your opening, make sure it is in fact plumb. And that looks pretty good. Make sure it's not twisted, all that. Bob did a really good job framing this, so I know it's good. We know we want to shim this out. This is the hinge side, so we want to shim this side first. And I'm just adding these 1/2 inch blocks. These are just pieces of 2x4 cut to the width of the door frame. And I'm going to put it right where that center screw of the hinge falls. Put 2 pins in it. And do the bottom hinge. Okay. And I also have cut some 1/4 inch scraps of Luan or plywood, and I'm going to stack 2 of those together to give me my 1/2 inch gap so that the jamb is off the floor enough to account for my flooring. We're going to be using LVP vinyl planks, so you have to account for the thickness of the plank and then whatever the underlayment is, which is real thin, and that's how we're going to lay in our door frame. And I've got the whole door slab up here with the jamb, everything, you know, the whole pre-hung unit. And I've got it laying on the hinge side because when we pull this out, pull the door out, I'm just going to lift the frame off the door rather than try and wrestle this big 3-foot wide door up out of the frame. I have to pull these 2 nails out that have this jamb nailed to the frame, to the door. Which leaves a nice hole in your jamb and your door that we have to fill. But they have to put that in there so you can ship it and the door's not flopping all over the place. Now we'll take the pins out of the hinges, which are underneath here. Just take a nail set and tap it out. Now I'm just going to process this door like I did the rest. Hit it with the sand block, go over it with a tack rag, and then we'll take the frame off. And we'll get ready to hang this jamb. Like I said, this does make a difference. It helps it accept the pre-stain and the stain better, and it has a little bit of fuzzies and mess on it just from the manufacturing process. And it's pine, so it sands up really nicely. You don't have to do much. This is just a 220 grit sanding sponge. All right, now I'm going to try and lift the frame up off the door, which is easier than trying to lift the door up out of the frame. Now I've left the bottom spacer that they've installed on it because it's way easier to maneuver. Here's the jamb. Now I'm just going to pull out these hinges from the jamb because we will be pinning behind it to install the jamb to the opening. And now with that done, I'll just quickly sand the inside. All right. Now, as I said, I'm doing every door the same, so once I'm done with this one, you pretty much get the idea for all the rest. I've left the other half of the hinges on the door and just taped them because we'll pre-stain and stain over them and pull the tape off. Don't need to take those off. So I'm just going to sand this up and hit it with a tack rag and a vacuum, clean it up. The reason I'm doing this is they've just cut this completely straight and didn't do any kind of finish work on the inside here. And so it's a little like, I don't know, kind of splintery or hairy. And all you gotta do is 1 or 2 passes there and just, I'm not trying to round it over, just get that fuzz off. And it really makes a difference. Also, you know, these are kind of sharp. Just taking a little wee bit, like a 32nd or even a 64th off, makes a big difference. It is a little time consuming having to do this extra step, but these are not super high-end doors, and that little extra time is worth it for the price. Your mileage may vary. I'm not using a electric sander because you gotta go by feel a lot. I'm just trying to take a tiny bit off. An electric sander would be easier to overdo it. All right. Now I'm going to vacuum it, tack rag it, flip it, do the same thing. Okay, this slab is ready. It is sanded, vacuumed, and tack ragged, and turned out pretty nice. Now we just got to pre-stain it, and then stain it, and then probably stain it again, and then polyurethane it. So there's nothing else I can really do to this until we have actually figured out the exact stain color we're going to use. So I'm going to move on to mounting the jamb, basically pre-hanging the jamb. So the point is we're going to mount the hinge side and get that perfect. And then you put your door back in with the hinges, put the hinge pins back, and then you mount the rest of the frame around the door, because once your hinges are set, the door's square, level plumb and all that, and you just kind of fit the rest around it, making sure your reveal is right, shim it, and tack it in. This is the important part. This is why we're pre-doing this now. So this bottom piece, which is just there as a kind of spacer thingy to hold it together while you're shipping it, we have to take this out. All right, double check, make sure the hinges are where you want, so the door is going to open inward against this wall. It'd be pretty dumb if we did it the wrong way. Set it down on the shims that are on the floor. All right. Now we're trying to center this right between, get it flush with the drywall. If you're at a place where you've got the space, you can clamp it, and it's helpful. Not tight, just hold it. That looks good. Now you want to make sure your corners, run your level and get this flush as best you can on each side, because when we put our casing on, we don't want a big ass gap that we have to fill. Okay, so we're good this way. Now we got to get good this way. And we might be lucky, because that's perfect. Now again, you're not worrying about this part. That's fill-in. I'm really worried about this part. And that is looking about as perfect as I can get it. Now again, this shim is right in line with the center screw hole of the hinge. So when we actually go to install the hinges again, we'll run a long screw into each hinge, and that'll really bind it together. But for now, we're pinning it right into that shim right there. All right. Now, you're good. Perfect. Sweet. Now I can take the little floor shims out from under this hinge side, because it is set, and we can reuse these for the next door. Good. Now this will stay here, and we'll be able to wiggle it as we need to once we put the door on the hinges. Finish doing all that. Gonna pre-stain this, gonna pre-stain that door, and that's pretty much it. Just lather, rinse, repeat. I'm gonna go ahead and try putting another coat of stain on our test pieces, and let's see what that looks like before we quit. Now when we first did this, I thought this looked better than that, but this is dried to be a little more like kind of golden. This is the espresso dark walnut. Let's see, with dark walnut, we're gonna do second coat. Not sure why I'm doing this one because it doesn't have the Prestain. It just, not really an apples to apples, but trying to decide which color we're going to use and if we need to use 2 coats, which I think we do. This is the espresso. All right, it's been a little over 15 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and get a clean rag and let's see what we've got on our second coat of stain. This is kind of pointless. Here's the one. Well, that's on there kind of thick. Wow. Kind of like that. That's pretty nice. This is the espresso. It's a much more golden color than I initially thought, and this has a little bit of a green tint to it. I honestly don't know if I actually like either. I'm looking for a nice brown. Like that. That's on there pretty thick. Well, that's what we're working with. What do you think? Do you have any preference? All right, that door is pre-stained. Gonna let that dry, and this is just gonna be more of the same for the next couple weeks. We're gonna be pre-staining all the doors and jambs, pre-hanging the jambs, getting those ready so that when we do pick our final stain color, we're gonna go all through, stain all the doors, probably with 2 coats, then polyurethane, probably with 2 coats, get those all hung. So that's gonna take a while. And in the meantime, I'm waiting on ceiling planks, which we're actually getting. They're on the water right now. And you know, all these containers and cargo ships that are stacked up in all the ports, and then they can't get trucks to actually get it through. Everything's bottlenecked. So we're waiting on planks and waiting on, actually I'm trying to work through our cabinet order. There's a big lead time on those, 12 to some odd 16 weeks lead time. We're just nailing down all the details for that so I can actually get the order in and get that process going. So, you know, just trying to herd all the cats so that when all comes together at the same time, we'll have a lot of work to do. So that's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you watching, and thanks again to Ariat for sponsoring today. See you in the next one.